Given that Mr. Roy went over by almost 2 minutes, I would like to give the ranking member a minute before I begin.
The gentleman, you yielding a minute to the gentleman.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you to the gentlelady from Vermont. I just want to be clear about this. First of all, I want to align myself with members on both sides who have found your testimony, Ms. Romero, very important and very disturbing. And we all agree that gang members should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and if they're here unlawfully in the country, they should be deported. But the idea that that should become the basis for a mass roundup and deportation of people who've never been charged with anything, who have no criminal record, strikes me as absolutely preposterous. And the administration, at least, was willing to come forward to say, okay, they have the wrong person. This was a mistake to have him, but now, c'est la vie, I suppose, he's stuck in El Salvador under a dictator who throws people into a prison that engages in torture. And my colleagues would rather go all the way down to the end of the field with Donald Trump rather than admit that that is a blatant violation of American due process and all of our constitutional values. I mean, that's just extraordinary to me that members of the House Judiciary Committee would be taking that position. That's a very serious problem. Now, Judge Boasberg, who's a conservative judge who was appointed to the bench by President Bush, correctly determined that the Alien Enemy Act of 1798 doesn't apply. It had only been used before in that original Alien Sedition Act period, World War I and World War II. It is for wartime. It is for the deporting of foreign nationals who belong to enemy states, or if there's a military invasion of the country. And it doesn't apply, so he said, we've got to use the Immigration Naturalization Act, but that requires a due process hearing. But that's too much for my colleagues who can evince no sympathy at all for this father of a 5-year-old with autism who has been sent to another country. Now, I don't know, because we're not a criminal court, whether he's done anything, but I do know, based on court records, he has no criminal record. He's not been convicted of anything. And suddenly they're saying, well, he's a member of MS-13. He had an asylum petition, which I'll enter for the record, which showed that he was actually being harassed and persecuted by a criminal gang, which was why he originally came to America. And the court determined, although his application for asylum was time barred, nonetheless, he has established past persecution based on a protected ground, and he has established the presumption of a well-founded fear of future persecution. So maybe you guys know something about the case I don't know, but that's why I believe in due process, because I think a court should be hearing this. I thank the gentlelady for her indulgence and her kindness.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard the suggestion from some of our witnesses today that because President Trump eked out a narrow win, he should have the right to do whatever he wants with no checks on his power. And I find this deeply disturbing. As a former civics teacher, it feels like we failed somewhere along the way. Presumably, we've all had some basic civics education, and I'm hearing a shocking misunderstanding of how the Constitution works. Professor Shaw, thanks so much for being here. Let's briefly reestablish the fundamentals here. We have 3 branches of government, correct?
Correct.
Executive, legislative, and judicial branch, correct?
Correct.
And under our constitutional order, the head of the executive branch, the president, generally must obey orders by judges, correct?
Absolutely.
And one of the ways Congress oversees judges and the president is through impeachment or removal from office for violating the law or other egregious behavior. Is that correct?
Treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors, correct.
Thank you. But Congress does not remove judges because of a disagreement with how they ruled. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And why is that?
Judicial independence requires the judges not be constantly afraid that they will be removed from office if they issue a decision that is unpopular or that is, opposed to the interests of the political powers, or that runs against the political winds. Judicial independence requires judges to be confident and secure in their rulings and not fear the consequences of those rulings other than reversal on appeal. That's a consequence judges can and should fear, but that really is the primary consequence.
And as you've said, this has a chilling effect. This entire presidency so far is about having a chilling effect on the way that government works. The House must not take up impeachment resolutions based on anything but serious misconduct or illegal behavior. Yet Republicans, including people on this committee who claim to respect the Constitution, have introduced impeachment resolutions against judges because they don't like how judges did their job. They've introduced 7 impeachment resolutions so far. I'm sure there are more to come. Trump and Musk have publicly called for the impeachment of judges that they just don't like. Just by introducing these impeachment resolutions, my colleagues have attacked and weakened the independent judiciary. Does a weakened judiciary, Professor Shaw, endanger Americans' constitutional rights?
The courts are a key guarantor.
The gentlelady's time has expired, but I will give indulgence. You may answer.
I apologize, I didn't see, sorry. I think that an independent judiciary has been and continues to be a key guarantor of all of our rights, and so anything that threatens judicial independence is a threat to all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. And I will just say in closing, I taught my students for years the Constitution requires that we respect the rule of law and not the rule of one man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, gentlelady. With that, we
Mr.
go to
Chairman.
the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Democrats love to talk about democracy. They claim Donald Trump is a threat to it. They